When I lost control of my body, the hardest thing I had to learn was letting go of control.
From the moment he was born, Drew Clayborn was strong and sturdy. Now at 22, he's still strong and sturdy, even though he's paralyzed from the neck down. Give me this day, the triumph of faith and will, this week on My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it. Welcome to My Healthy Mind. I'm Michael Hunter. Today's story will have you all over the emotional map. It is a story of faith and will, of triumph over extreme adversity, of family love, of friendship, of unshakable inner strength. It begins with a child who was naturally optimistic and outgoing, intelligent and active. Drew Clayborn was into everything good: sports, theater, music, and life. Until one day, at age 15, he broke his neck doing a random backflip. Settle in while my colleague Elizabeth Atkins talks with Drew Clayborn.
Drew and LeDon, welcome to My Healthy Mind.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
So Drew, you lived a very full, very good life before your accident. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so before my accident, I was pretty active in school and stuff, and I played a lot of different activities, and I was in marching band, played football, basketball, and then whenever I'd find time, I was always trying to just find something to do. And so I was pretty active in school and at church and everywhere, yeah.
His name is Drew. Picked it out of a name book because of what it meant. It's that for strong and sturdy. He truly is very strong and sturdy.
And then you broke your neck. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, so sophomore year in high school, I was 15, and in between a couple of sports and stuff, there was a musical at school, and they were just bringing people in, asking if anybody had any special abilities. And I was like, well, if you want me to, I can do a backflip. And so I started learning how to do a backflip, and I was going to a dance studio and taking tumbling lessons. And one day in the hallway at school, me and some friends were just joking around, and we started doing backflips. And when I went to go do a backflip, I landed on my neck and just landed wrong. Woke up in the hospital.
So when you regained consciousness, were you aware of what happened?
No. When I regained consciousness, it was kind of in and out. It was probably like a week after the accident actually happened where I really regained consciousness. Because initially, family members and friends and stuff were coming to see me, and I kept waking up and asking what happened. They would tell me, and then I would fall back to sleep, and then wake up and do it again. So once I came to, it was kind of the same thing. I just asked what happened, and they told me, and my initial thought was just I got an extension on my homework.
My goodness.
That was my initial thought.
Wow, that's a true student.
Right.
Thinking about their homework.
That's a true procrastinator, I thought.
So when did you realize the gravity of your situation?
His first week there, like you said, he didn't remember much, but that was induced.
Okay.
They gave him medication so he had amnesia, so to speak.
Oh.
Because they didn't want him to, wake up, freak out, because his neck was still broken, hadn't been set yet, and things like that. So that was intentional. And then by the time he came through, one of the things kind of intentionally did is we had already been planning, and a lot of his friends and teachers and everybody from our community wanted to come and show their support. So I decided to let him. Mm-hmm. And so by the time he started remembering things, each day he was probably having 50 or 100 people come to his room to visit him in the ICU. And so they used to have a rule where they only let him in 2 at a time, but there was so many that it's like, okay, we'll make an exception. And so they'd piled in there. Some of his music friends would bring their guitars, and they'd jump into bed, take selfies with them, and talk about the same stuff they were talked about before he got hurt. So he was always optimistic, and we were always optimistic and still are. So we immediately went into what it's going to take to get him fixed versus accepting this as a new way of life. You know, that wasn't even a thought. I've always raised them to be optimistic. You know, we wasn't the richest family in the world, and they always had challenges, and they had to be raised with divorced parents. And the last thing I wanted to see happen to them is that they lose faith or belief in the things they could do with their life and lose the reality of how wonderful life is.
So at some point, the doctors must have said, you're paralyzed, you can't walk.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. After he did the surgery to set his neck, they gave him a super dose of steroids. I guess that's like a normal thing they do, and sometimes very seldom it works. It kind of shocks the nerve system or something, but usually they know within about 72 hours. So it was a waiting game. Every day was waiting. They would come in and do a little test to see if he was responding, and then finally when it reached the point where you had, and they came and sat me down in the ICU, and your mom was with me, and they kind of told us that at this point that he was going to be a quadriplegic.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Mental Health Services has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan. Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery. Team Mental Health Services, because we care and you can.
When a person experiences a traumatic event, a number of things can happen. First and foremost, there's a sense of feeling overwhelmed, a sense of feeling a loss of control. And those two things are experiences that a person has to find a way to process within their own mind, put into the context of their own life. They may develop either a grief response, a depressive response, or a post-traumatic stress response, depending on their own personal makeup and their particular experience of the event.
Welcome back to My Healthy Mind. Almost all people who suffer the kinds of catastrophic, life-changing injury that Drew has experienced encounter some type of mental health issue. Severe depression, anxiety, even thoughts of suicide. Many do not have the internal fortitude or the external support system that Drew has. Often, professional help is required.
Physically, tell us what you were feeling.
Physically, nothing. It's one of those things that when your accident first happens, that's really where your sensation is lowered a lot. And then since that point, I've been able to regain a lot of sensation. It was all about rehabbing to try to regain some movement and seeing where I was at and what was possible and what was going to come after that. Because I still have the idea that I'm going to walk again one day.
Absolutely.
Between, I know, I forget who said it, but they said, God or science, I'm going to walk again. So I don't care which.
Drew, what plans were mapped out for your treatment and your future?
Initially, when I was in the hospital, the huge game plan was geared towards first getting me home, getting me stable. But then there was a huge push to get me back into the marching band. And all my friends and everybody kept coming with ideas of how to get me back into the marching band. Because before my accident, I played tuba. And so after my accident, there were ideas of playing the harmonica. There was ideas of a bunch of different stuff, and we ended up coming out. Someone came up with the idea of playing a MIDI controller.
That was Dave Rogers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's a MIDI controller?
So it's kind of like a synthesizer. Keyboard plays different sound effects. And so that was a big mission after my accident, but which also helped was a lot of my rehab, because there was a lot of neck movement. Marching band helped with that. And then it was also a big push of being able to stay healthy after being in the hospital. So
A lot of people who experience a traumatic situation like you have go through a natural grieving process. Can you relate to that?
I didn't really have any time to grieve. I never really got down.
So you had said something pretty clever, and basically you had said that with all the support and all these people caring about you, it was really shocking for you and you felt like you couldn't let anybody down. So I thought from that point that was a strong motivation for him, is that he didn't want to let anyone down who was showing him support. And I think that fueled you quite a bit for a while.
Yeah, because it's one of those things, you have all these people showing you all this support and everybody being there for you. It's like, how can you be down? Like, how can you be sad with all this great things you're able to do?
And one thing that contributes to you being strong and sturdy is your faith. Can you describe your faith to us, please?
Yeah, my faith is taken, especially, since my accident, there's been so many examples, but whenever there's any type of situation where I have any type of doubt, it always works out. So I'm at the point now where my faith is more so, it's not if something's gonna work out. I know it's gonna work out, and that's just where I'm at with it.
So where does that faith and that knowing, where does it come from?
We've done a lot of incredible things from my accident to now, and each time we don't think things are gonna work out, they do. And it's one of those things, something our pastor mentions, he likes to talk about the Lord's Prayer, and the one line is give me this day. And honestly, that's all we've gotten, and that's all we keep getting it. And we always just keep getting this day. Like, as soon as we lose something, we get it right back in another way. There was a lot of things to worry about, but it just seemed like, I don't know how or why things are going to work out, but I always know they will.
Welcome to My Healthy Mind.
A show that dares to talk about mental health matters that touch nearly every family. Each week you'll meet guests who share their stories, hear from local experts, and learn about resources that may help.
And so I was in a committee meeting at the House of Representatives when I realized that my daughter had autism.
We need to take the stigma away from mental health issues.
No topics about mental health and wellness are off limits on our show.
Let's talk about it on My Healthy Mind. There's a lot of good, sound advice for those who have gone through an incapacitating event, as well as some truly groundbreaking procedures and programs available. As for inspiration, Elizabeth Atkins continues with Drew Clayborn.
So Drew, everybody took on a role to help you. Tell us about each person's role.
Early on, it was really my brother and my mom came back from Chicago, and my brother was able to take and do a lot of care for me and being with me in that way. Same with my sister. She was doing a lot of care for me, especially my first year after my accident. We were both still in high school. So there would be days I would be in school and she would have to come with me, and like either I would go to her classes or she would go to mine. And we would just figure out a way to take care of each other. And then my dad has been a huge role of the fundraising and helping with our nonprofit and building our nonprofit and doing all the fundraising and really gearing that forward. And my mom still takes care of me, and she helps with filling in shifts when the nurses aren't available. And we all just take a role And my dad's always filling in if nurses call off. He's always the, what is it?
The on call.
The on-call. The
On call.
Yeah, I'm on call.
Right, he's the last one, the last anchor. If there's nobody else, he has to drop whatever and come be with me. And
Once you were released from the hospital, tell us what it was like getting back into normal life, what you had to do to prepare.
so, being able to keep my body healthy, we had to figure out a way to live a normal life while still doing rehab and things like that. So in the hospital, I was on the rehab floor and we were doing physical therapy 3 days a week and sometimes more. So when I got home, I started going to a rehab facility 3 days a week, either before school or after school. And that was taking a big toll on me. And we saw that we just weren't getting the results we needed. So in order for me to go to school for full time and keep my body healthy while still doing therapy, we had to figure out something else.
Yeah. Well, then I got invited to a seminar, nursing for caseworkers. They have a gathering and they share best practices and so forth. And I got invited. And one of the guest speakers was a man by the name of Phil Muscio. And he owns a company called Axial Bionics. And he did a presentation of his wearable therapy. And he explained that he had used the same therapy for Christopher Reeves and all these different things. And as soon as I saw it, I go, that's what he needs.
Yeah, my body responded really well to the therapy. It's a wearable suit with electric stim pads that stimulate my muscles. And I can wear it, and it allows me to do therapy at night while I'm asleep and still stay healthy. It helps with blood flow. I don't have any muscle atrophy.
No bone density loss.
Yeah.
No health, no heart
sores.
issues, pressure sores, none of that.
It helps with cardio and keeping my heart healthy. So yeah, it's been a huge. That was the big kicker that allowed me to live a life while still being healthy and not having to worry about my health.
But we did it, and it worked. It worked better than we ever could have imagined. Not only did his body stay healthy, but he got bigger and bigger and stronger to the point now we're reducing the therapy so he doesn't get any bigger.
Right.
Yeah, his
Trying to lose weight so the nurses aren't breaking their backs trying to pick me up.
And the inventor, the guy who invented the stuff, he's marvel. Like he uses Drew as his pitch guy now to sell his product, because he'd come out to the dorm with his measuring tape and measure his thighs and his arms, and they were like all over 100% increase, 115, 125%. I mean, arms went from this to this, and legs went from this to that. I mean, you see how thick his thighs are. He's stronger than me, even though he can't move it on his own. When he's definitely ready to be lifted up out of that chair. Absolutely.
So once all these resources and this infrastructure was established for you, what was it like to step back into the world and go to school and socialize?
That part's easy. Even ever since forever, school's been easy, and that's socializing. That's just fun. That's me living. That's me doing what I would be doing anyway. And that's what everybody should have the opportunity, just to be themselves, to do what they would be doing. Otherwise, this isn't the end. This is not a limitation. There's nothing you can't do.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Mental Health Services has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan. Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery. Team Mental Health Services, because we care and you can.
Most people come through traumas fairly well with the support of their family and friends, and their own inner resources. People who haven't been traumatized in the past, people with high levels of functioning, people with good support systems, who were able to experience themselves as capable of coping at the moment of the loss, do much better. In the case of recovery from a major bodily loss, it requires a sense of hopefulness, a sense of ability to cope, ability to get through things, and that may come from any number of different things. It may come from religious faith, it may come from all sorts of things. So family support is very helpful, religious support is very helpful. All of those things help people to get through these things much better than somebody else might.
Today we are talking with Drew Clayborn, a 22-year-old quadriplegic, about faith and will and his triumph over catastrophe. Elizabeth Atkins continues.
Special equipment, 24-hour care. How do you manage that financially?
God's, he provides.
Yeah.
Well, we started a nonprofit that we raise money to help others with brain and spinal cord injury, but it also still serves Drew. We have 2 specific events for him every year. It's a golf outing and a run. Our golf outing does great. Our 5K, 10K is still building. And so we also have some angel supporters who don't want to be mentioned, don't want to be talked about, but they actually send money to his trust on a monthly basis to help pay for his nurses or pay for expenses or his transportation or whatever. And again, it was all miracles. I meet someone, tell them the story, they like the story, they fall in love with Drew, they want to help. The fact that he was in college after everything that happened to him, they all know somebody who would have just gave up, has inspired a lot of people to want to be part of his story.
Drew, how has this affected you?
With all the support that I've gotten since my accident and seeing how other people are living in similar situations as mine, I always want to give back. And for me, for the nonprofit, it's a huge goal to have it be largely for other people and not me. I'd much rather do anything, any type of fundraisers for other people, and to give them, to pay it forward and show along the support that we've gotten and to help others as well.
Can you share with us some of the technological tools that you use? For example, college students write papers. How do you write a paper?
My phone is a big part of it, because a lot of the time when everybody else, when they pass out papers to read, when they hand out pamphlets that you need to look at, I always have to make sure they have electronic copy, and I'll pull it up on my phone and read it on there. And then my chair is pretty heavy duty because it has to endure a lot. I will say this, once I'm in my chair, I'm much more stable and much more independent, because between...
Oh, extremely independent.
Yeah, between my chair and my phone, I can do almost anything, especially in my room, because I'll have it set up to where I can use my phone to control the TV, the lights, thermostat, and that type of thing at home. On campus, I can just control my computer from my phone.
Music.
And so, right, music, and it's a big part of my mentality, because it gives me a lot of freedom, a lot of independence. So when I'm up in my chair, really, my mannerisms are still the same as before my accident, and really, it gives me a lot of control and independence, and allows me to do the things I do comfortably and not have to think about it.
So Drew, what are your plans for the future?
I want to cure a major illness, or at least work in somewhere in a field that's working on cancer, muscular dystrophy, or stem cells, or anything. The cure for paralysis is already in the works somewhere, and if they need my help, I'd be happy to go help them. But that's where I'm excited, and just for personal reasons. It's definitely something close to me and it's something I'm interested in, and that's what I like to work on.
So what message would you like to leave for the viewers of My Healthy Mind today?
Every single person has a story, and each of us can learn something from each other's stories. So I would encourage everybody to just go out and learn other people's stories. Go sit with people, talk with people, and just see what you can learn from someone else's story.
Drew and LeDon, you are two remarkable people. We're so grateful for you to share your story here today. I'm certain you'll inspire many people.
Well, thanks for having us. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stress, depression, and severe mental illness can happen to anyone. Team Mental Health Services has been helping those struggling with these conditions in southeastern Michigan. Within 24 hours of reaching out to our team, members receive psychiatric evaluations and begin the necessary treatment for recovery. Team Mental Health Services, because we care and you can.
Elizabeth, I don't think I've ever met anyone who's been such an inspiration. Never blaming, no whining, no woe is me. I'm really humbled by this guy.
I agree, Michael. I feel privileged to meet him and very grateful that he's sharing his story on our show.
Between the mental and spiritual inspiration and medical advances that are becoming more accessible, there's real hope for people who suffered a catastrophic injury.
And so much that's positive and so many resources. To help you in your quest for mental wellness, we've put information and resources on our website, myhealthymind.com. Please take a look. Visiting myhealthymind.com could be an excellent first step toward dealing with catastrophic events in your life.
And we'd like to hear from you about topics you'd like us to discuss on My Healthy Mind. I mean the tough topics that are so important to talk about openly so that we can help others on the path to well-being. So reach out to us on our website at myhealthymind.com or on Twitter at myhealthymind or on Facebook.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of My Healthy Mind. Let's talk about it.